tips where they're silver.
Oh,
I think they should be red.
yeah.
It's more of a homage to the original.
Yeah.
Other than that,
yeah. But the cool thing is you can even fold the flap back over it.
Mm-hmm. That's the way I have mine.
Yeah, so that way it's a bit more, like it just popped up right out of his forearm.
Well, that's also more cartoonish, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think
that's what Masterpiece is always trying to do first. I think it's always trying to first be an accurate representation of an animation model, and then afterwards, if it has the budget or the space to then throw back stuff to the original toy. In the case of this one, I mean, you have this tab on the back here, which, I mean, people are saying, oh, it's to attach Rat Trap or anything, but people aren't even making the connection that, I mean, it kind of in a way is also a nod to the original Ultra toy that had the gimmick, the little lever too. Yeah. There's so many little things that are going on this
we're real quick, only because we just went live, which it's funny because more than likely everything else was on there anyway. Doesn't matter. But hello and welcome to TFYLP episode 223. I am your host Megamus. With me is Proto Man.
Yo.
And Headmaster Don.
Optimus Primal. Maximize.
And we've been discussing this wonderful, wonderful new acquisition that we all acquired from Hasbro / Takara. The Masterpiece Optimus Primal.
And he is. I think this is one of the few of late that can actually qualify for the moniker Masterpiece. He doesn't have the QC issues that's been coming up lately.
Nothing.
Well, there's little things that if you like I said, like redness is there and there, but overall, perfect.
And you know what? And just to cut off for a sec, it's really the first time that we've really had a Masterpiece toy where everything they've been trying to do up to this point has been something that's been previously a 2D model, like everything that's been a cell animated character. That really, when we go to a 3D form of something, we have to always have some kind of liberty. This is something that to be holding this. I mean, we're looking at the CG model in our hands practically.
Exactly.
It's just kind of scary when you almost look at it.
And just imagine if we get other beasts. I think it's a shame now that we aren't, with the knowledge we have right now, not getting more Beast Wars characters out past Cheetor. But again, we don't know yet.
Give it time.
With this, since they've got the main. Yeah, since they've got the mainframe 3, and I'm sure they got from mainframe because mainframe still mainframe exists again, so I'm sure they've got the 3D models that they used originally. That has got to be helping in the design process. Already having something in 3D that you can actually start working with right away. But I'm a big Beast Wars fan. There are some toys I wish I hadn't bought, in Beast Wars, but this Primal, because I was thinking, do I really need this? Because I have, as we talked to just a minute ago, I have Ultra Primal. We all have Ultra Primal. That Ultra Class figure is a great figure. Do I really need? Yes. If you like Beast Wars, you need to get this Primal.
Well, first things first. I am henceforth calling you Headmaster Yawn instead of Dawn. All right, that's going to be the new one.
All right. Well, I work retail and it's November. Do the math.
Sorry, but it sticks. It's just what it is. The big thing and I'll be honest, when I saw the reviews, because I got the reviews before I got the actual toy. I'm a really cheap person. And I wait until I get a whole bunch of things in and then send it all at once. So, I get things kind of late.
I should get an Oscar for that reaction shot.
You should. That was pretty spot on. But so I saw the reviews first, and the first thing I saw was how much smaller it was from the retail deluxe toy. That wouldn't be a deluxe. That'd be an ultra, wouldn't it? Yeah. That was the ultra style back then. Okay, so the ultra, and I'm like, oh my god, but. It fits. It fits in with Generations Rat Trap. In my opinion, it fits in with Generations Rhinoc. Now, if they decide to do Masterpiece versions of those, that's fine. But as it sits right now, they're perfect. And if I'm not mistaken, someone told me that the little peg on the back that you were just referring to is actually for Rat Trap to fit on his back in Beast Mode.
Yeah. Yep, from the first episode. Now, just for the people who need the size comparison, I recently acquired the homage version of Eva Prime. What I'm calling the homage version, because I couldn't afford the regular version at $500. So basically, this is MP10.
So that's an MP10 scale.
Yeah. So MP10 Primal comes up about
a little above waist.
Above waist, let's say elbow or mid torso. So if for you scale junkies, again, 84 scale meant nothing. So we really didn't care what scale meant. But if you need a scale for your buying decision, he comes up to be about mid torso on MP10.
Now, in my opinion, that means he's too big.
Yeah.
He's way too big because, I mean, he was an ape as opposed to a semi in size, do the comparison. And if you remember when he turned into Optimus, he grew substantially bigger. Yeah. And I know there's a couple third-party companies out there, one in particular that's making a pretty nice-looking one. And I guarantee it's going to be a lot bigger than this masterpiece. Now, what does that mean? Yeah. In my opinion, that means the scales are getting closer. Now, you can't make Rat Trap, which is the size of a rat, and, Optimus Primal, which is an ape, and then, Optimus Prime, which is a semi. But also remember in the show, Rat Trap was fairly big as a rat as opposed to Optimus Primal wasn't an ape. So there was some size discrepancies there.
How it kind of was in the show was I always felt that Primal, Cheetor, and Rhinox were kind of like the measuring stick of everything, where they were 1-for-1 scale, more or less, based on their original intentions. And then everyone else just kind of had to work around that. Rat Trap would have to be bigger. Waspinator would have to, any of the bugs would have to be bigger.
Well,
and
absolutely.
in the case, a lot of the dinosaurs had to be a lot smaller. So,
right. I mean, think about Waspinator. How big would he have been?
How big would Primal be against Megatron?
Exactly. Megatron was a T-Rex. I mean,
exactly.
So they had to do a little bit of
fudging.
Yes, I'll go with that. So, but it's still, I look at what I see on my shelf as opposed to what I saw on the show, and they're pretty daggone close. Yep. I think they are. Now, do I put him next to my MP10 and on that shelf? No. I have my G1 Autobots on one shelf, and I've already started a new shelf for Beast Wars. They're different. The scale doesn't mean that much to me, but that's just me.
And I've always felt that the Generations Rhinox kind of was Masterpiece Rhinox to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's pretty good.
I mean, if we ever do get a Masterpiece Rhinox, I can't imagine what they're going to do at this point.
Well, think about it now. They've already got Cheetor in the works.
Yeah.
The only thing I could think of, they're going to have to go to the Predacons. They've already got 2 Maximals. You got to go with the Predacon. Who better to lead off with than Megatron?
Do Megatron.
That's got to be next.
Yeah, I will say 2 things though. I'm hoping the third parties look at the success or this coming of the beasts, and they start looking at getting some more third, because it's the beast that we get. I think it's going. If this is the anniversary year, and all we're really getting is Primal, and we're getting nothing from Hasbro, except maybe like the ape face homage, which really doesn't count. That's more, that's a G1 homage. Although in Japan they did the Optimus recolor of him in the convoy set, but I'm hoping we see more third-party beasts for those characters. Like I would love a Masterpiece Silverbolt. I love Silverbolt. He's one of my favorite Beast Wars characters. But what I would like to see, in addition to that, I want to see Transmetal Optimus. I want to see, because I prefer Transmetal Megatron 1 to Barneytron.
Well,
that's just.
I'm going to tell you right now, in my opinion, Silverbolt is a good character, but I would put him way down the list. In my opinion.
I agree. I think that any of that Transmetal Fusor bubble, I don't think they would be revisiting that anytime soon.
Yeah,
you get the basics done first.
Yeah, you've got too much season 1 core cast. But
I mean, if I had to pick one out of all of them, it would probably be the Megatron, if anything.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Megatron, and then only because of the popularity.
And finally, to get away from the GPS,
you got to go with Tarantulas.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, Tarantulas
even
too.
Waspinator.
Even if those toys were perfect to begin with, even the originals.
Yeah. Well, now the cool thing is, if we got a Dinobot, maybe we could finally get a better looking Dinobot that was both Predacon and Maximal. So that way you could get either version that you wanted for your shelf.
That would be as simple as a little flip.
Yeah.
A little flip on that, which they've done those before.
Yeah.
So something like that. But there was actually a kit that was on, I know I saw it on eBay. A guy was doing a resin kit of a pretty good size G1-ish, I guess you'd call it, Beast Wars Dinobot. And it was pretty darn good. All right. Now, I know, in my opinion, when I see stuff like this, I think that even though a lot of people say that Hasbro isn't really listening, they do. And some people see that, and they see that, and they go, that's not a bad idea. So do I think Dinobot's maybe on their radar? I do. Yeah. But in my opinion, the next one's got to be Megatron. Megatron's got to be next.
But the cool thing is, if we get a Dinobot, we can get a Grimlock repaint out of that too.
That's the other thing. You don't think they're looking at that? Absolutely. You don't.
We're gonna get a burning convoy from this.
You're gonna get Clear. You're gonna see Universe.
Rossi.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, sorry, but I'm gonna say it. They're gonna puke out as much as we'll buy. You know that. Yes or no?
Universe Optimus Primal in the Masterpiece. That is almost as horribly wonderful, awesome as G2 Thundercracker in Leader Class, which I still want to. I still want to see that. Anyway, if you are a monkey as good as truck person, and you like Beast Wars, I think all of us will definitely put a seal of approval on or an ape of approval, since there are no seals, on getting Masterpiece Primal. The mace, I can take or leave the mace because it's an extra $20 I'd rather have in my pocket. But I think Brett will probably say get the mace because it's another odd.
You're getting it for the box.
Yeah, but oh my God, the box was worth it. It is so chintzy and just. I wish I could pan to my display I have, because I actually have Primal standing there with his foot on the box, because it's the only time I've ever put a box in the display. It is so funny. But he's got that nice mace. That thing is amazing.
The box for you is like the BotCon Machine War set with the KB sticker.
Yes.
Because having worked at KB and K&K, having worked at KB Toys, seeing that little fake KB sticker, it made the box set for me. It felt like I was, like in my mid 30s working at KB Toys.
Trust me, that was a nice little, Easter egg, whatever you want to call it. I did enjoy that. Yeah. But when I saw the pictures and it came in this little
banana box.
It doesn't say anything other than it just shows the bananas, but you kind of know what it is. The little banana crate, you open it up and it has this nice little skull mace that the original one came out of his arm, which I'm sorry, but even way back in '95, when I saw when I picked this figure up, in actuality, Beast Wars was kind of what got me back into G1, believe it or not. And I thought it was just amazing, all the gimmicks and everything. And then when you opened it up and you saw this mace of this skull, and I'm like, this is a kid's toy. And it's got this skull with these spikes out of it and everything. I was like, that is cool.
So it's metal as hell.
I was like, gotta love it.
And of course,
I wish is they would have incorporated it into the actual mold. That's just me.
And of course, there's also going to be like third-party add-on kits eventually for like the shield that he used in guerrilla warfare. Maybe the flower Dinobot gives him some, just a little, a little accessory kit just to sort of, they probably might do a mace for people that didn't pick up the regular mace. Just things like that. Maybe a little drone that you can clip onto the chest.
Cyber B for the chest.
Cyber B for the chest. Just a little Optimus Primal, and it'll be like go ape with your accessories or whatever the case may be.
Well, all I can say is that Michael Swift must be very, very happy because it looks like Beast Wars is getting some love.
Which I am not. I am a huge Beast Wars TV series fan. I love the toys, but I do like my Transformers being cars and trucks. But I'm not a truck. I believe this was this is we've discussed this. This series saved Transformers, whether you want to admit it or not.
Yep.
But I also believe that if this is successful, and they do several different renditions of the Beast Wars characters, I'd be willing to say that you're going to see some RID love coming next. I think it's just going to progress. I really do, because as we talked about, generations.
Well, I have said this in the fact that the Masterpiece scale would be the perfect size to redo the Car Robot Brothers to give them extra mass so the transformations aren't quite as frustrating, especially on Sideburn.
Imagine the articulation and everything you can impose upon that at the Masterpiece scale. Absolutely.
Well, heck, you could even just copy the articulation that's already in an RID figure, and you'd have more than enough articulation to do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But anyway, but Brett, you mentioned something about your Primal in the case over there. See, you've got a lot of nice cases, and this is a blatant segue into our first topic for the evening.
Yeah, we'll go with that. All right. So the main topic is not about Primal Prime or Optimus Primal or anything like that, or Beast Wars, even though that is an awesome figure. I actually saw a couple postings on Facebook, and people were talking about how they store their figures. And if you have loose figures, the number one easiest way so you don't lose all the little bits and pieces is your nice little Ziploc baggie like I have right here. And I'll be honest with you, I've got figures that I've had in these for quite some time, and I personally have never had any problems. However, it came to my attention that a lot of people have said that it has caused yellowing. It has actually caused different problems, that there's actually been condensation in some of these, and I guess that would be from where you store them, which we'll get to that a little later. And they've actually had the actual toy that's always been in this baggie yellow. So I was like, okay, let me look into this. Maybe there's some merit to this. So I started looking, and a couple things I found out is that there is a, and I'm really, really bad with this word, polypropylene, an acid-free baggie that is specifically made, and you can Google it and find it, for action figures.
I guess it's because they have the same thing with comic books now, where they have acid-free.
And then that's what I was going to segue into the next one is they said it's very similar to comic bags, where there's no wear and tear, there's no way for the I guess the acids in the baggie to actually transpose to the item inside, be it a comic book or a toy, and cause it damage. So I started looking into this, and there seems to be some truth to this. Now, like I said, my personal experience has been that the nice little Ziploc baggies that you buy, you can get, 20 of them or 50 of them for a couple bucks. They seem to do the job. They keep all the parts together, and you have a nice little thing, and you take your little magic marker or Sharpie and you write on there what it was, whatever you want to do, and you store it. But evidently, some people have said, and I don't know if it's how they store them or not, but they have started to yellow. What are your guys' thoughts on this?
Well, unfortunately, when it comes to storage, my idea is putting it in a box and putting it in a closet. I have weapons in boxes that's not even in the same room as the figures. I have a very large collection, but hardly any of it is actually together.
Well, and there's something I want to talk to you about that, and I will put a little hyphen next to this little next topic. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I have been trying, since I've been doing the shows and talking to everybody at the conventions on how they store stuff. I've been trying to keep the stuff together a little bit better, but I've been collecting since I was 16. I'm sorry, since I was 14.
So that was like 50 years ago.
Yeah, I'm 46 now. Yeah. So I have stuff from way back in the day. I have Prowl in one room. I have G1 Prowl in one room holding the gun. I have his missiles in my Transformers collector's case, the small square ones, under my bed in another room. So my stuff is literally not even in the same room as the figures they go with.
I do have one question though. Do the original Lincoln logs that were made out of wood and the stone and tablet that you were using, are they still holding up well?
Yes, they're holding up well. I have to.
Okay,
actually,
good. I was just curious about that.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
and
good. That's good.
Yeah, and my pet dinosaur is still doing well as
good.
Okay,
so good.
That's Dino's doing good. Okay.
Yes,
good.
He's doing good. So yeah,
Dino snacks, right? Yeah.
So storage is just not something that I'm really good with, and I need to get better with it. That being said, I don't have any. I have had some problems with action figures on my wall because apparently there for the longest time in my spare room that I had some stuff on the wall. There was one ray of sunlight was hitting one figure for about an hour a day, and it was it was a Super Robot Monkey Team Hyperforce Churro figure. Because we all know how limited the action figure line was before.
Did it do anything to that?
It yellowed the torso completely.
So you're talking about something that saw sunlight maybe an hour a day.
Maybe because it came in literally at the angle between where the blind ended and where the window frame was.
And you had it in nothing, just a straight on production bubble
on the wall,
sitting on the shelf.
Exactly.
Or on the wall.
And also on the other angle was my Star Saber. Ooh. And at the and I've got on this side right here, it's yellowed on this one side of Star Saber because it was hitting that. See, that's why I have Galaxy Shuttle. I have Thunder Dagwan from Brave Command Dagwan. I have Artfire in a G1 Artfire in a dark closet shut from the light of day. Now, that's no guarantee, but I can't display three of my favorite toys because no matter how dark I make this apartment, there will still be ambient light coming in, and it could cause with those 80s yellow, with those 80 white plastics. I am not going to risk my Artfire yellowing because I will be sick.
No, I agree with you, but I think there's something to be said, and there's been some information on the line. I've looked at this, that, and the other. They've talked about direct sunlight and indirect sunlight and what it does, and is there a difference? And some people say yes, some people say no. Some people say, hey, I put my stuff in a tote and locked in a deep, dark, and we'll get to this, temperature controlled environment, this, that, and the other, which temperature has a lot to do with it. Mm-hmm. And all this stuff. There's others, I know my collection sits in my room, but I have purposely blocked out the windows.
Yep.
I've made sure. So there is absolutely no direct light, but I have these fluorescent lights. So
that's where I'm going to say,
oh my God, fluorescent lights are just as bad. So you were going to talk about that? Go ahead and go with it.
That's where I'm going to cut in on there. See, with my collection, I'll just grab now I have this is modern stuff. Let's say 2000 below, there's Armada, everything. The light that's there is traditional fluorescent. Mm-hmm. We go to, now here's G1. That uses a different kind of fluorescent. I actually learned this from my father. See, this is like I guess we'll call it cool white. This is what's called museum display, which apparently it's the kind of fluorescent that's used in museums where they don't fade paintings, and apparently it also doesn't have the same effect like yellowing.
You have these, I guess it's called UV lights.
Yeah, it's like a low UV. I don't know if you have this chain in the States, but there's a place called Home Hardware, and they have different kinds of fluorescent lights, and they're called, I believe it's called museum quality. And what it is it's low UV. You don't really see it through the camera here, but in person, you could kind of see. It's a little orange. It's not as pretty, but at least with my display here, it's in order of year. That first top shelf is 84, 85. I don't need a Jetfire turning yellow on me. I don't need I'm trying to think of what else really would suffer from that from those first 2 years. Maybe Skylinks. But I mean,
well, you have like down. What is it called?
When you go more down, so like right here, we don't got to worry about G1 Japan stuff. There's Sky Gary. Everything's kind of hard to see from the angle. Star Sabers there and stuff.
Right, because they're lower down.
Yeah, but because I do it by year. But that stuff that's in the direct light there, that's 84, 85, 86 more or less. And I mean, the only one that's really the one to worry about is Jetfire, and he's been in direct light consistently in that light for, I want to say, 6 years now without a problem. But again, I'm not too worried about the Armada stuff. It's under the regular light. If we go to the whole other side of the room, forget the movie stuff. Okay, there's Masterpiece, but the movie stuff pretty much lines the entire.
So have you noticed anything that is discolored?
Yes, I noticed that with fluorescent, it does fade, like the straight up fluorescent, and it fades blue. Any blue transformers, I find that it starts to get a lighter blue, almost orange, not orange, green sometimes.
Green. But green was the one I was always seeing.
But again, when we're talking the likes of, I'm trying to look at what was the example here, some of the mini-cons specifically, like the Astro, what's it called? Not Astro Magnum. Oh my God, whatever the third combiner team that turns into a weapon. The one that turns into
the shield.
The Star Saber sword.
The Requiem.
The Sky Boom.
Requiem
Blaster.
Blaster.
Thank you. So like Astro, whatever his name is, I know his Japanese name is Astro, but he has a little bit of like that fading going on. And again, it's Armada, so I'm kind of like, meh, I don't care. But I'm just very careful with anything that's in the G1 display specifically.
Now, there's something else that I've used, but since we have another person on, why don't we ask him? He just kind of slid on in.
So finally got to figure it out. I just reinstalled it on my phone. But
so we're talking about storage of figures, this, that, and the other, and it got into a little bit of a segue into how do you display with lighting, this, that, and the other. So how do you display your figures in your collection?
I pretty much just have like the classic bookshelves to where, once I get the camera loading, there you go. See it?
Yeah. So you got them all on shelves.
Yeah, I pretty much had these little black bars. I had lights somewhere. Now that I organized the room, I actually don't know what I did with them. But they were
those are LED though, correct?
That was my next question was about that. But go ahead.
But yeah, they were LED lights I had from Menards. They were like 2 packs for like $12 each, and I had it. All I had for lights in it. I just pretty much go simple. I'm thinking about going to like those glass cases like Duran has. But
the DTOF cap.
The DTOFs, yeah.
Yeah, but
my question to you, since you've used these LEDs, have you noticed any degradation or any discoloring in the figures at all?
Actually, no, and I'm looking at a few of the white figures I have, and it's like the only real yellowing I can see. I'm not sure if it's just me getting, old, but it looks like my Beast Hunters.
Says one of the youngest members of the cast, I think.
But yeah, it looks like the only one I can really see is just Beast Hunter's wheeljack.
Do you think that sees any sunlight at all? Is there any direct light, or do you think it's actually from the LEDs?
I'm not sure if it's from the lights, but luckily I got room darkening drapes. So I have sunlight coming in. So, but yeah, that's, I think, the only figure I can really notice. I don't have too much for whites. I think the only one that really can get affected is like FOC Jazz or the Generations Jetfire, pretty much. But they're pretty much like.
And those ones, to be honest, though, like the yellowing when it comes to white plastic, more so it's the kind of plastic that's used too. That's another thing. for a lot of people that owned either Super Nintendo or old computers during the early 90s, it was a kind of, I don't want to say cheap plastic, but it was a plastic that was very susceptible to oxidation, which led to that kind of yellowing. And again, the most classic and well-known example is a Super Nintendo. Anyone?
Yeah, I had one of those. Even my PlayStation 1 over there, I know, is getting yellow.
Like a Super Nintendo, Nintendo, when they first released it, they used a very cheap kind of plastic, and it just it didn't even matter if it was direct sunlight, because there's people that are collectors that would open up mint in box Super Nintendos and they're yellowed in there. So and
there's other things to that too. Yeah, you're talking about the plastic degradation, which I understand that with that. But there was another thing I was going to go to before I went into a couple things that I did was. A lot of people say the touch, just the oils from your skin can actually change how the light penetrates and doesn't penetrate certain plastics. I know this is
I can believe that
100% true with metals. You talk about firearms and knives, this, that, and the other. One of the things they tell you to do is after you've handled one of these two things, make sure to wipe it down, because the oils that are secreted from your hands can actually speed up rust or oxidation. So it would make sense to me that would also change how the light interacts with the plastic. So a lot of people have talked about that too. I don't know if there's been a lot of study into it, but it's something to think about too. It's one of those things we've all, that you kind of know is when you get done messing with your toy, make sure you clean it up. So just make sure.
Yeah, so he's trying to say is don't spank the monkey.
Don't mess with the monkey until you've cleaned it up.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
But in terms of when it comes to display, at least in my case, I'm one of the lucky few that I'm a completist, but I also have the space to display everything. So from a storage angle on my side, the only kind of stuff that I've come into more as an issue is packaging and paperwork. When it comes to paper, we'll start with paperwork because that's the less complicated of the two. It's very easy to just throw every instruction you get into a box, and that doesn't take too much space. Like usually whenever there's a Supreme class toy, whether it be a Primus or a Unicron or an Ultimate Bumblebee from the movie line, I always use that as an excuse. Or a Cheetor. I always use that as my excuse to be, that's going to be my fancy box that's going to hold every instruction of that era. So like every movie toy, and I have every movie toy, which is, but every movie toy's instructions is all in one Ultimate Bumblebee box, and they're all just stored in there. And it just applies with everything. If you look at Energon, all the instructions are stored in whatever leader of that scale was, which I think was the Prime, or actually the Supreme Omega Supremes and stuff. So, but anyways, when it comes to cards and stuff, because now it's becoming more a common thing. It's something that Takara started years ago, and we only really started making that a regular thing with Transformer toys with Armada and Energon, which now a lot of Transformer toys come with trading cards. And so that obviously it's a no-brainer. I have a whole bunch of binders and pages that hold trading cards and stuff. The one that's the complicated one for me is boxes and card backs. And when you're someone like me who buys pretty much everything, you end up with a lot of card backs, you end up with a lot of boxes. And I've kind of gotten to the point now where I don't keep the bubbles on card backs. I carefully, with an X-Acto, remove the bubble and recycle it and send it back to the earth. And I'm very picky with what card backs I keep even, like it's gotten to a point that kind of stuff takes a lot of space. I mean, I keep every Masterpiece box and a lot of Japanese stuff, but when it comes to a lot of packaging, a lot of it is just a waste of space. I mean, to open up a toy that's large to begin with, and that's going to take space in itself. You open up a Unicron or a Primus, that's going to take space in itself. Then you keep the box that thing was already taking space in to begin with, and you put that aside without flattening it. It's almost kind of ludicrous. So it got to a point where I started really, reevaluating what I keep in terms of boxes and everything. And unless it's something that I could see, and I know it sounds a little nutty, but it's like if I could something I could resell down the line, and I'm not saying selling the figure, but I've had a lot of times where I kept a box and then down the line I get a double the figure somehow through a fan or a collector or someone just unloading or even a garage sale. And hey, now I have the box, I throw it in there. I know this happened a lot with movie toys. And I throw it in the box and then I resell it. Now, hey, it's got the box. But I mean, I don't suggest that to people. I think that takes an exuberant amount of space. It's probably, I have a patio, and under my patio has a storage, and it's literally just filled to the tits in Transformer boxes. It's absolutely insane how much space just boxes and card backs take.
And this is a very, very, I'm getting very niche in the collectors, but I also remember if you collect overseas figures, Takara, their stuff is usually pretty small, because of shelf space and everything else in Japan. But on the flip side, let's say you're a Brave collector. Let's say you buy the stuff from Sonicon. Korea does not have that problem.
All Korean packaging gets recycled with me, except for Brave Max. That was about it.
Yeah, but so there is also the fact that the country that you buy the toy from, especially with the Sonicon stuff, the upside is their box work is gorgeous. It's big, it's bold, it's loud, it's a beautiful box. Most of my Brave series is from Korea because I could not afford the Japanese ones at the time. I do have like a Liner Dag one. I have the Japanese version. My Super Liner Dag one is the Korean version because of the cost, and also finding a fourth train by itself was impossible. But the boxes, oh my dear God, the boxes are huge. So I've got a closet literally full of just boxes. And most of them are the Sonicon boxes. So again, it's not just what you buy in the U.S. or what you get from Japan. If you buy anything from overseas, you've got all that as well. And the problem is, if you have an overseas figure, you kind of want to keep the box because that's going to really help. It's not as common, and people kind of want the whole deal. So you've got to worry about that. So
and the extreme case of that, especially when it comes to Sonokong, is when you're talking Beast Wars Neo stuff, where I don't know why they had such big boxes for like deluxe 2-packs. Like they'd have like I'm trying to think of an example, like the giraffe.
The big convoy set that came with
Magmatron. Yeah, that thing's
Magmatron.
Huge.
Yeah, that thing is absolutely huge. I mean, and the problem with the Sonicon stuff is they don't come in little things you can trade. The trays are plastic trays. You can't, to condense them would be to shred them. That's the only thing you can really do with them.
There's no flattening involved.
There's no, you can flatten the outer box, but not the tray it came in. So again, that's something else you have to consider is if it's like I recently bought a Kamen Rider figure. It was Watermelon Arms from Kamen Rider Game. Basically, it's a watermelon that turns into a suit of power armor. Trust me, it's a long story. The box is probably as big as Masterpiece Ultra Magnus's box, if not a little bit bigger. And that's just for one piece of Kamen Rider merchandise. So it's not just Transformers. If you're collecting other things, all your lines are going to have these bigger boxes.
And it's the crazy thing, like I said before, is you buy something, it itself physically in the packaging already takes space. You then remove it from the packaging. Now the figure is taking space, but yet the box is still physically taking the volume of your life in space.
Double.
Yep,
double.
I can testify to that.
And that's why, like, I got to a point where, like I said, let's just return all of this to the earth, where it was just like 99% of, if it's an American card back, unless there's really a valid reason to keep it, I don't care what Wreckage from Movie Line 2007 thinks of Megatron's leadership skills. Just send it back to the earth.
One thing I was thinking of is most people that do that, where you have the carded collector and you have the loose collector. And if you're a loose collector, is one of the things you want to do is, I got to keep the instructions or the trading card or whatever. But one of the things I do, and I actually have it for my, and I dug it out real quick, is for my G1 is the same thing as most people do, is I have all mine in a little card I think these were for trading cards or whatever. They're a little bigger. And I literally have. So this is every G1 instruction booklet that was made for the U.S.
Let's put that.
So they're all right here. Now look how much space it takes. It doesn't take that much. Okay. Yep. But imagine all these with their boxes. Imagine how much space it would take. So, yes. Now, granted, every single one of these also has a toy that's back here somewhere that's taking up space, but not so much completely boxed in. You know what I'm saying there? I mean, you're talking about different degrees of, do I have space? Do I have the patience to do all this, to break them down or store them however you want? There's a lot into this.
I used to have this mentality too, where it's like I was keeping card backs because, you know, you'd have character bios on it and tech specs. But slowly as the internet started to, you know, really, and then not to mention, like, I have a bookshelf that's just like every Transformer reference guidebook or anything of that manner. And I mean, then when they started making guidebooks that have, you know, all the tech specs in them, of different walks of life, it got to a point where it's like, what am I keeping half of this stuff for? You know, unless there's like a real monetary value or a sentimental reason for enjoying the character, there's no reason to keep tech specs. You might as well just sell them. When we're talking G1, when we're talking like tech specs for, I don't know, Cybertron, whatever, again, return it to the earth. You know.
Yeah, but I'll be honest with you, even as a retailer. If I sell a toy and I sell it with its, say, tech spec, 9 times out of 10, I just sell it with it. I don't even increase the value.
Yeah, so it doesn't make a difference.
It doesn't really make a difference. Now, I mean, I could throw a box out and sell 90% of the tech specs for 50 cents to $1 a piece.
Now,
they just don't go for much.
Now, there is one option. The friend of mine did this a long time ago. I haven't seen him in years. He stopped coming to BotCon. But what he did was he took this shows you how long it's been. He took a flatbed scanner, and he scanned all of his instruction manuals into his computer, and he saved them again to floppy. Now this is when you still had a 3 1/4 inch floppy on your computer. CD drives were just beginning to be put on computers and stuff like that. And with today's storage capacity of today's media, if you had one of those portable scanners, you just rub over something instead of having a flatbed scanner. But you can actually scan your instruction manuals into your computer if you needed to either print them out to go with the figure to resell later on. At least you have the instruction manual to go with the figure, even if it's not the original. The problem with what you're doing, Brett, is that works fine for like the G1 stuff.
Right.
But look at the size of the instruction manuals we got for Beast Hunters. That was the maps.
I know, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and I'm going to say this. Oh, let me pick this thing up. So this thing actually has some value. Okay. All right. This is all the G1. Oh, let me pop it open again. G1 instructions, this, that, and the other. So this thing has some value. Let's be honest. If everyone thought it was going to be worth money, hang on, it fell out. If everyone thought it was going to be worth money and everyone saved theirs, it wouldn't be worth as much. So in the same breath that I say, hey, maybe it's not worth holding on to all these Beast Wars, RID, Cybertron, instruction booklets and everything, if everyone gets rid of them, the few people that hold on to them, it's going to be worth money.
That's the paper boom mentality of the comic books and cards of the 90s.
It's flip-flop. Yeah, exactly. So what am I saying? Do what you want to do. If you want to collect them, collect them. If you don't, don't. Simple.
And when it comes to like, oh, you keep the instructions to know how to transform it, or if, you know, a couple of years from now you forget how it transforms. I mean, there's quite a few good resources online. Like a good example for G1 stuff, there's Botch the Crab. He scans most of the Transformer G1 instructions. And then, I mean, YouTube is such a great place that there's a good amount of reviewers that pretty much their videos just consist of showing us how to transform stuff. I know that even me, instead of having to dig up Jetfire and Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime's instructions, which would have taken me forever to dig through and find it, I just went on YouTube and I went, PIA, tell me how to do Jetfire
Exactly.
Prime. You know,
I can tell you for a fact.
I got to put this thing together so I could have it for a convention to sell.
Right.
You know, so
I can tell you for a fact that for the last 3 years at least, I can't think of one third-party item that I bought that the instruction booklet's ever been opened.
Nah, there you go.
Because all I do is when I get it, I look up YouTube and I watch it and do it. Watch it and do it. It's so much easier.
I think the only time I ever really used instructions is with Masterpiece, now that I think about it.
I haven't even done it for Masterpiece because they're already right there.
Well,
they're there.
Ever since I've been on here in RFC, that's one thing I've always talked about. Please, third-party people, make better instructions because there are some.
Don't assume we know what you're talking about. Exactly.
Okay. Well, like for example, there's a third-party figure. Most people y'all don't remember. Do y'all remember the small? It was called Transportation Captain. It was a G1 Astro train that had the coal tender that was part of the sets. It was coming out about around the same time as Devil Star and Chigura.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah, a lot of people don't. They're getting to be very popular because it's a great looking classic sized Astro train that fits well with classics. But there are there's several videos on YouTube, but they're kind of hard to follow for various reasons on transforming the figure. So if I do wind up getting that figure, I've got really no videos to go by as other than just what the instructions might have. So that's why I keep saying third-party companies, please try to make your instructions a little bit better because right now they're crap to follow.
Mm-hmm. Well, they have that conflict where because third-party made in China, engineered in China, and aimed at multiple language markets, so you don't usually see wording in instructions unless there's a comic based with it. Then it's usually done in English.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do understand what you're getting at, especially when it comes to upgrade kits where they can't even really show the figure. They show it in a silhouette, like the figure that's supposed to attach to.
Well, it's not
Diet Commander kit.
Exactly. The Commander line by Fans Project in general is guilty of that.
How? No. Bad boy.
Nice little Massey attack right there.
Don't you bite me. Don't you bite me.
God, that is a big freaking cat.
Fat fucking cat.
He's actually as tall as Supreme. He's actually as big as Supreme Cheetor.
I'm so sorry.
Don't you? No. Bad boy.
So, we have that going on.
Yeah.
You all thought Massey attacks were just an urban legend like Batman.
Yeah, it happens. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is we talked about the fluorescent lights. One of the things that I went and got, and I happened to get them because they were on sale. They have, believe it or not, they have fluorescent lights specifically made for aquariums.
Mm-hmm.
And I started using those.
I think I heard about those.
They put out a more white light, and as far as I can tell, knock wood, I haven't noticed any degradation or yellowing at all.
That's cool.
Well, like I said, I've looked into this heavily, especially when I did the construction of the room. I was being very perfectionist about it. There's different kinds. There's blue light. There's I think there's one called daylight. There's the museum style. I don't know what aquarium is, but I mean, what it boils down to, it's the amount of UV that's really put into it.
I don't think, well, you can see it a little bit. And it's funny because they're right next to each other. I don't know if this will show it or not. Let me see if I can see. All right, so.
It's hard to tell.
All right, there's one display case right here.
Okay, so it's not what the DTOF is giving off, though.
No, this is a big, long, 8 foot. This one is a normal. Okay. The one in the corner that's bringing out white, that's for the aquarium. That one right there is aquarium.
And that has a Grand Max in there, so.
And it has a Grand Max. That's aquarium.
So it's the Age of Aquarium then?
The Age of Aquarium. There you go. But I can tell you right now that Grand Max has been there for a few years now. Nothing.
Well,
that one has the aquarium lights. That one over here, the big one, I just got in because they're longer. Those are regular fluorescent. The other thing is that the aquarium lights only come in, they're not in the big long, I guess those are 4-footers. They're more like 2-foot.
Yeah. Yeah, so, because your average aquarium is not going to be, it's going to be real narrow. Yeah, real narrow and real long. You're not going to have the room for that big one.
I will say that I also, for the DTOFs, I switched to, I don't know if you could see this or not, because there's my DTOF way over here by the, God, I'm trying to get it. Anyway, that is not a DTOF light. That is an LED light.
Okay, that explains
it's just color. A little bitty one. Yeah. And it lights up. It actually goes all the way down to the bottom shelf, and it's LED. So I did that. Mostly because the little DTOF lights that they have, those little suckers burn out so much, and they're freaking like $4 or $5 for a bulb. So this LED's got a lifespan of like so many hours. It's been on, and it's fine. So I did that more for cost. I know, Don, you're shocked, but I did it for cost, and it worked out fine.
Oh, no, it's fine.
I think LEDs are good.
Well, actually, this week I forgave the Dononomics and actually didn't worry about it on a purchase this week.
The Dononomics.
Oh my God! Yeah. You go up a little so you're not looking.
Yeah, so I just said I don't care. I found what I was looking for and I bought it. And I didn't care about the Dononomics of the situation.
How much did she cost you?
It was the NES Classic. I actually found one at retail, so
a lot of people were talking about that. There was like a limited number of those, right?
So I was lucky enough to get one. I thought I'm not gonna worry about it. I want it. I got it. I'm happy. So there's that. And I also realized something. I am so rusty at Ghost and Goblins. I am so.
Well, that's a tough game to begin with.
Ghost and Goblins. I was so bad at that.
About that in years.
Yes, I'm so bad at that. But anyway, Brett, I got a question for you.
Yep.
Let's say someone has just moved into their house, and they're a newer collector, and they want to fill up their closets with stuff. Can you help them out?
I think there's a couple places they could go to. God, I knew you were gonna put me on the spot because I'm horrible at these catchphrases.
You me to do it then? You me do it?
Why don't you do it? Okay. Because I am horrible at it.
Because I'm reading Brett's mind right now. Oh my!
But I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah. But if you're looking for vintage and classic things, if you're looking for something a little more retro, check out Mega Toy Fan. Right here, Mega Toy Fan, all the bigger toy and hobby shows. He's also on Facebook. Maximize your collection, minimize your cost at Mega Toy Fan. And if you're looking for something newer, like for example, Masterpiece Optimus Primal. Say Cheetor's coming out. Say you have the need for speed. You've got Cheetor coming out, or any great third-party products. Be sure to check out CapturedPrey.com. Great toys, great prices, great service. CapturedPrey.com. Also, check out the Captured Prey customer loyalty program as well.
Sounds wonderful. So there you go. So we're talking about getting toys, storing your toys, displaying your toys. Now let's get back to
toys,
at least for a little bit. Now let's get back to storing your toys. So you're talking about your boxed taco tank.
Oh God!
And your boxed my Overlord.
Yeah, my friend.
Boxed big, huge, whatever you can think of. How do you store these things? You know,
my closets.
Yeah, my friend.
At least I have one of those now.
Closet.
My old place, it was just one small door, and it was
just a closet.
Yeah, he actually got a taco tank not too long ago. He picked up at a local. Yeah, and he loves it, but he's like, he has no idea where to put it. I'll
be honest with you. Anyone that has G1s, anyone that has G1 toys, think about G1 Triptychon and how big and bulky that stupid box is.
Yeah.
And this taco tank is just like that. Now, had they flattened it out, thrown it in some styrofoam, or put some little wires around it, whatever, the box would have been about half the size. But no, they had to make a nice little diorama. So this thing is I'm going to say if you took a microwave and cut it top to bottom in half, that's what you're looking at. It is.
And it's because
huge.
of the arms. It's because of the arms and the way that toy is. And that toy also, not only in a box is it an issue, but I have it in my collection. It's hard to display,
estate, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. Like your Beast Wars second shelving, if you want to call it that, is going to have this weird thing splayed out on it, and then you just got to kind of put stuff around it because you're just wasting space otherwise.
Just put it around it, exactly. But the funny part is that's one of those ones, and a couple of the other ones like the Volcano playset, this and the other.
Yeah, Niagara Base and
they look really good boxed because they displayed them. They're not just standing there all static pose, this and the other. They look good, but it takes up a lot of space. So my question is, I know what I do. Like I have all my Beast Wars stuff because I don't have enough room here. I have the first run and the second run and actually the third run of Beast Wars all boxed, and I have them in boxes. I don't have them in totes. I actually have them in cardboard boxes, and I put them down in the basement where it generally stays anywhere from very, very cold to 60, sometimes 70 degrees in the summer. So that brings me up to another topic that we might want to just touch on is temperature. Do you take all your nice prized toys, this, that, and the other, throw them in a box and throw them in the garage where it gets to be 110 degrees?
I'm going to have to
Probably
change everything
not.
to Fahrenheit for a moment because I'm Canadian.
Just think hot.
Yeah. Well, I'll just jump in quickly. In general, 99% of my stuff is in basements to begin with. I live in Canada, so a basement in even the worst possible frickin' summer, it could be a heat wave, and that's still, and I just need to I have to do the conversion here one moment. In F. It's gonna be cold. We're talking 104 max here, in a heat wave. Like that's 104 Fahrenheit. That's the most. And a basement in Canada at 104 is still going to feel super comfortable with no air conditioning. So as long as everything's in a basement, I don't really worry about weather.
Right.
In terms of the actual storage of it, everything really, like a lot of that big box weird stuff. And considering that most of the boxes that I did keep are Japanese stuff and they're huge, Star Saber, Overlord, Diatlas, Sky Gary, Grandis, the list goes on and on, Road Caesar. And then if you're even talking the likes of Grand Max, Brave Max, and all of that, all that stuff isn't in a box. It's just itself, just Tetris standing in a closet over here. I have a closet where I put all my G1 boxes that I kind of want to have safe. And then anything else that I've kept, Masterpiece boxes, stuff that those are boxes that if they got destroyed, I wouldn't weep over them. You know what I mean? Like if you told me, oh, your MP10 box got destroyed in a flood, I'd be like, well, them the breaks.
So you have stages. You have stages of importance in your story.
Yeah, G1 Japan and a lot of Japanese exclusive stuff that are like the Beast Wars stuff and its exclusive boxes, specific Galaxy Force stuff here and there that I picked up, or Micron, which was Armada. But in general, I mean, in the disposable area, which we'll call it your second stage, some Vinyl Tech boxes, 99.9% of local retail that I've kept. The local retail that I've kept of Creo stuff, and that's very limited. Not much third party. I'm not a big third party guy, so there's not a lot of that. There is boxes kicking around, but considering how much I've bought of third party, it's almost minuscule. There's not much. Like every Rescue Bot thing I ever bought, I've thrown out the boxes because they're so silly. They're not even boxes. They're like these exposed packaging card backs. I don't know how to describe it. So those are tossed. So much of that. So in general, G1, all that stuff is safely put in a closet right behind me. Doesn't not in the sunlight, but it's not in a box either. They're just kind of on their own doing their thing.
Well, there was something else I wanted to touch on, and I mean, you do the same thing I do. A lot of your boxes, this, that, and the other, are just put away in a corner. I throw mine in a cardboard. They're actually the old. I I can't remember what they call them, but they're big, long. They got the little handles. They're made of cardboard. But these are cardboard. But anyway, so my question being is that cardboard versus totes? I haven't come across it, but some people might. In the basement, you get creepy crawlies, you get bugs, you get spiders, mice. All those things will actually feast upon and burrow and destroy your toys. So with that in mind, do you think totes versus boxes?
I think that bugs will always get in regardless. Where I come from, bugs have an extinction at least every 6 months due to weather. So it's not too much of an issue. Mice and all that stuff. I've never encountered a moth in my life. Same thing with mice or any kind of stuff like that in my house. Again, because every winter everything goes extinct. So the way that I see it, I do boxes. I think in my entire life, I've never, I had one toy in my entire life and it was funny, it wasn't even a Transformer toy. I had a mint on card Earthworm Jim toy, and somehow a spider got into the bottom of the bubble and died. And that was stored in a cardboard box, which I'm pretty sure they would find an easier way to get into because they're never hermetically sealed, those things.
Of course not. They're not nearly
put a little bit of
tight.
tape. You put a little bit of tape across the one side that would open, and that's it. They'll find a way. And spiders, they like to be in snug places, and a lot of bugs want to be out of light. I've never had a problem with cockroaches or anything, but it's essentially just been spiders here and there, but it's never been too big an issue. And I think spiders are probably the least destructive out of all of them.
Yeah, they are.
Like they just put webs. They don't really burrow. Where something like an ant, again, this isn't a problem in Canada, but I would assume ants would be something that are a lot more evasive. Termites in Canada, never even heard of that, but there's certain things that I'm pretty sure I would imagine would be a lot more evasive insects for that.
Well, the other thing I wanted to talk about, and Don, you alluded to it, was if you're going to do things loose, what do you do with the extra bits and accessories? And you say that you just kind of throw them around haphazardly. So,
yeah, again, I'm getting better at that, but yeah, it's
one of our listeners. One of our listeners, Frank, he said, "Has anyone ever thought of vacuum packing accessories?"
I have
That's not a bad idea.
I have a pretty good suggestion for that. If you go to Walmart's or certain sports stores, if you go to the fishing section, they have what are called bait tackle boxes.
Yep, I have those. I have a couple.
Freaking love these things. This is a tradable one. This is all my tradable stuff, but I have a whole bunch of these, and I sort them by colors. These are all tradable accessories, but I find that these are amazing for any kind of toy collecting because they seal nicely. They're clear, so if you stack them or store them, you could still see what's in them. You don't have to open up every box. Oh my God, where's that Minicon engine port thing? So these are a lifesaver, and they're fairly inexpensive. I know that
they're not that expensive.
At Walmart, something like this is approximately in American dollars, I'd have to say about $6.99. Maybe even less.
That's about right.
And they're incredible. I have tons of these, and I only keep this one nearby just because it's tradable stuff. But I have tons of these, and these are like a lifesaver. They're great for doing conventions. They're great for your own personal storage. And I just like it because they're clear. So if you ever need to pull up something and you have them stacked, you have a pretty good idea of what you're dealing with right away. You don't have to go through them all.
Well, here's another neat one. One of the things that I use, I got a bunch of them. I got one smaller like that, but I also have ones. They're actually in the school aisle. And they're pencil cases, and I can't dig them out, but they're about this big, and they're fairly decent size, and they're deep enough where you can put bigger accessories. But the main reason I like those is because they're actually the perfect size to go in a DTOF. Now, why would you want to display that? Well, they actually make a unit, and I know that Duron has them that goes
with the shelving at the bottom.
Exactly. So you open that up, you can store those in there. So the toys that you have displayed right underneath in this cabinet are all your accessories. And that's a wonderful way of organizing it. Now, another thing that's been suggested and I really like is, if nothing else, get a spreadsheet, make an Excel sheet that states, hey, I've got this, this, and this. I've got complete. This one's missing this piece or whatever. And that's also good for when you go to conventions. You can just pull it up on your phone. When you go do your room-to-room trading, which everyone knows I love to do, and you say, hey, you throw them on the phone, you say, this is what I'm looking for. Makes it a lot easier.
I think that anyone who's a collector of an above average level, I think always having some kind of list or spreadsheet or Excel.
It should.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I think it's a given at this point to have it on your phone. When it comes to accessories, especially, I mean, with Transformers, and if you're a Joe collector, losing pieces is the name of the game. It's just how it is. So especially when it comes to G1 collectors, maybe not modern toys today, they'll have one gun or something, but a lot of old G1 toys, and even going into, Armada, there still is a lot more accessories and pieces to be lost. And then who knows, going into now our Titan Wars, where there's going to be a lot of heads missing in the future. It's going to be quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I've never used Excel, but I think I have a copy of Lotus 123 around here somewhere.
Hell, even Notepad, like for the longest time. I mean, when it was still Windows 95, I had a Notepad.txt listing every single Transformer I was missing up to that point in 95, which was a very short list. So
I'm using Google Docs to just go through all my collection and just list every figure. Pretty much just get it down.
Another good example, like you just said, Google has their share. I forget what it's called. It's
Google
called
Drive?
Google. There's another one too, where you could share your list with multiple people online. I forget what it is. It's something. It's similar to Google Docs. There's something else, but that's another built-in program. If you have a Gmail account, you could log in.
I know they have a whole bunch of stuff you can do. Presentations, spreadsheets.
I was actually helping a friend with his because he made the list on Google, and he gave me the ability to log into it through my Gmail account. And through my Gmail account, I was able to look at his list and modify stuff and put pricing, or it's, there's a lot of useful programs that are available to people when they want to list their collection or if they're trying to sell. So there's a lot of good tools that are free online for stuff like that. And Gmail has a lot of that.
Good. So far we've talked about displaying your items, displaying them loose, your accessories, your paperwork, even your boxes, temperature, the baggy things, all this, that, and the other. Can you guys think of any other little tips or anything you could think of as far as displaying and storing your collection?
Well, the only thing I can think of is what we've talked about in the past: duplicates of molds, because that does create more storage problems because you're having more toys, and obviously, but I mean, so it's kind of looking at it from a different viewpoint. But if they come out with all these different molds, you're going to have to look at, do you really need every version of this mold? Which means, since you've already got it, do you need it in your collection? So it
depends on the type of collector you are. If you're a completist, then yes. If you're someone that isn't a completist, then it just says, how much do you like that character or that toy?
But like say, for example, you have an earlier version that has the nicer card art or the nicer bio or whatever the case may be, and the current version has a very generic bio, and that's it. So you could probably safely throw away the current product, the card back, and keep the better version that you couldn't easily replace. Again, it's kind of I'm just looking at it from, because I've been trying not to buy duplicates of a lot of things. It's like I have Sentinel Prime from Titan's Return. I don't plan on buying Astro Train. But
okay,
so there.
But on the same flip side, if you are a huge Astro Train nut, you have to.
Yeah.
It gets to that point where you ask yourself, not to mention, like, if you're someone that's like, hey, Never had a G1 based Sentinel Prime toy before. You get that. Then you go, well, wasn't really satisfied with that Classics 2006 Astro Train. I really like this one. It really gets to that point where you just got to ask yourself, like, do you want that toy enough? And I mean, that's where, I mean, you're talking to a guy who's completist, so it's a really hairy area for a lot. It's a very individual kind of thing.
It really is what you've focused your collection on.
Yeah.
It really is.
But it may help. If you like a new version of a figure you already have, but if the boxes, like I said, are at the point where they're so generic, they're disposable. At least there's that.
Well, card backs and stuff like that. In Canada, sometimes we get generic card backs. We don't get we don't get individual card backs, so that's a given. So why
now, when you guys had the classic line,
there was
I remember seeing one card backer for different. Figures.
We had Sunstreaker for we were making the transition to Universe 2.0, we'll call it, and it was the Sunstreaker wave, which was the very first wave. We had Sunstreaker across the board for the longest time, which was kind of great because then you're like, you buy the entire wave and you just only need to keep one card back, Because the back of the card, actually what it was instead was a cross sell. It was just going, well, here's everything in that wave.
Right.
So, it was a lot easier to make those decisions. What I wanted to also touch on, in terms of like when it comes to display, and this was something I've probably said in past with the podcast, but one of the things that I always say is you only have so much wall space. Mm-hmm. You can't use the roof, you can't use doors, so you only have so much wall space. And I always say with shelving, and it's like my religious thing with it is deep shelving. Like deep shelving is my secret, where each one of these shelves are like, we're talking deep. Like we're talking, I'd have to say 2 feet deep, each one, like an arm deep. Mm-hmm. Like I can't stress that enough because I never want to waste a wall. And I find like I've seen guys that have pretty impressive collections, but they use specific kind of shelving that I find wastes the space. It might only be like, you think of a bookcase. A bookcase is sometimes only 30 centimeters deep. And that's not a lot of, shelving space, where if it was double that, which is 60 centimeters, which is going over a foot at that point almost, you get a lot more shelving. You could put big characters in the front and go downward, or if you want to invest in risers, which you could get from the dollar store, or if you want to go fancy.
There's actually cheap ways for that too. But
yeah, smalljoes.com being the fancy way to do it. They have some nice risers that are fancy, but then you could get cheapy ones from, hell, you even buy a box of, I always say the cheapest one is, you have a girlfriend, buy her a box of Ferrero Rocher, and then keep the box after.
The boxes.
I'm not even joking. These things are amazing, so you keep the box after she's done.
It's
chocolates.
Funny. One of the things that I picked up, and I still have the tote here. I went to a Goodwill, and evidently someone had just gotten rid of their nice, wonderful Beanie Baby collection.
Ah, there you go.
And the wonderful staff there thought it'd be a good idea to pull all the Beanie Baby toys out and sell them separate. And they had a big tote full of
those stupid boxes.
Those stupid boxes. So I wound up getting these. They were $1 a piece, but on Sunday they're 50% off. So I got these for 50 cents a piece.
That's even cheaper than the dollar store.
And not only that, but the ones I got, the other ones, this is one where the little top pops open, but they had some that opened right here. So you could pop those open, flip them over, and you'd have 2 tiers there. I must have got 50 of these. And that's what I use all around to, like a lot of the combiners that are in the back. I put them on these, so they sit up that much taller than the combiners in the front.
And they're great too, because I find that when you have like a line, like even an example, like you wouldn't be able to see it from here with my collection, but when you have a line like Beast Wars, where it's a large line, but primarily deluxes. There's ultras here and there. There's the one big figure here and there, but it's a primarily deluxe and below line. So a lot of the figures are the same size. And if you have a deep shelving like mine, in general, like it would suffer from that. But I mean, I'm trying to get in shot here.
Well, a good line would be Beast Wars.
Well, see, like here's the Robot Masters and Beast Wars Return line together.
Right.
Now the Ultras are in the back there. They're on little risers, just because if they weren't, they would kind of be lost in the muscle there. And that's the good thing I find about it, is that when you have deep shelving with risers, you could display nicely and fill a lot of stuff in there. A lot of stuff.
Yeah. Actually, Daniel, you can use a door, because if you get a clear shoe storage over the door kit, put it, and then you can slip your figures, depending on what size you get. You can slip the figures into the individual shoe slots.
I've seen that done, and that's not. Is it the most displayable? Maybe not, but there's still displaying.
Kind of tacky.
Still, I think it's only left up to the imagination.
I guess so.
I mean,
maybe if it's all figures that are meant to be flying or something. I don't know.
Think about this. Do you ever go to a store? And I mean, we used to have one that was called Spencer's. Spencer's Gifts, and they always had a bunch of posters.
Okay.
And all the posters were connected in one spot, and you flip through them. Remember that?
Oh yeah,
Walmart has those too.
There you go.
They still do.
You could take something like that, put figures on both sides of them, flip them through. Is it the most optimal way of doing it? Maybe not, but you're still displaying them.
That's the one thing I've always told people, like, when you're a Transformer fan, the two things that you have to be careful when it comes to displaying is posters and autographs. And I've said many times,
posters take up a lot of real estate.
Yeah, posters, put them on the roof. Put them on the roof. See, there's some Matt Moylan. There's the original G1. Put them on the roof.
Here's the funny part. The only place that I have posters are behind the door. So when you open the door,
on the door.
On
the roof or the door. Don't put it anywhere else. No, don't waste a wall with a poster.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if y'all can see though.
Yeah, I see you have art there and stuff.
Yeah, that's
a little different. That's a little different.
That's hard to hang. Yeah, because that's a frame that if it falls, you're gonna be angry.
Or the metal signs, trying to keep those straight and try to get them in one spot. Those are hard.
But once again, we're not telling anyone that doesn't line their whole room up with posters and everything. This is a bad thing. Yeah. This is just different ideas.
It's when you're in a predicament like mine, where like wall space is a commodity. The scary thing is like I'm running. This is an entire room wall to wall of Transformers, and I'm already going like, oh man, I gotta worry about RID 2.0 in the future and the future of Masterpiece, because that stuff is growing and the real estate is shrinking slowly, and before you know it, we're gonna have a real estate market here in this room where it's gonna be like, am I gonna have to start like buying DTOFs to build an island in the center of the room, which I really like, not really having to do that, but it might have to get to that point at some point where.
Or you become the ultimate person that says, you know what, I've outgrown this house. Let me go buy another house. And I know someone.
I bought this house with that intention. I bought this house because I was like, oh man, this is the room.
Before I know where my head goes. That's what you do.
So. I don't want to ever get to that point.
Now I think we've put our heads together. We've talked about all the storage stuff, and we've come with some pretty good ideas. But I think if we're going to move to our next topic, let's talk about some guys that have their heads together, but not really for the best of reasons.
One thing I want to do right before we go into that segue, is I just wanted to say real quick, if you guys have any topics, ideas or tips or anything, throw them out here right now. I'm watching it now. If it seems really good, we'll talk about it. Just because this is what what we have come together, it's not the be all. We don't know everything. Let us know. Give us some insight, because we want to know also. Especially if we have a cat that like attacks us or attacks our toys and everything. How would you deal with that?
Oh no. Or if a camera doesn't work.
He never attacks toys. Just me.
That's good.
He likes to taste flesh too much, I guess.
So, with that in mind, and I'm still listening to that, let's go on to our next topic. We're talking about these guys with a bunch of faces. And I think they were actually in an episode that kind of talked about that too. And of course, I'm talking about who? Quintessons. So who wants to go first? Don, Jack, Daniel, who?
I'll go first.
There you go.
No, it's good.
I don't like them. I don't like them. Five Faces of Darkness is probably one of my least favorite multi-part episodes in all. It was a letdown. It shoehorned in the ones from the movie. It just bad animation. Again, season 3, the hallmark of bad animation.
Shame on you. Blasphemy.
Season 2 is my favorite season. I'm sorry. Season 2 is my favorite. I just don't think the Quintessons were introduced in a way that made me want to. I don't want them to be part of my Transformers universe. I like Primus. I like Unicron. I like the more mythic origins that we got. The Quintessons are kind of shoehorned in with, a crowbar and a hammer. And I just don't really care for them.
So in your opinion, you're saying that they have absolutely no place in the G1 continuum.
I think it all boils down to is the way they were introduced, the lackluster storytelling, the animation at the time for third season. They just seemed like it was just shoehorned in to add depth. I just don't care for them.
Well, let me ask you this much: do you think that might have been driven by the fact that they didn't have a toy?
No, I just don't care for them.
Well, I'm talking about the episode in general. You talked about the episode, and you said that they were kind of lackluster, that they really didn't have a lot of, meat to them, whatever. But, I mean, you got to remember that show was based upon selling toys, and they didn't have one.
Well, I mean, I could, back when they did Energon, and they had Alpha Quintesson, I had absolutely no desire to even buy that toy, just because it didn't really do anything, but just sort of sat there.
Pretty much.
It's just, I think if the Quintessons had been introduced in a better way, and had more ties to the movie as far as who they are and what they were and all that, but it's just the whole introduction, the whole Five Faces of Darkness.
Well, real quick, give us a brief overview of the Five Faces of Darkness and how they were introduced, best to your recollection.
Well, they were introduced as these shadowy, unknown agents that kidnapped Cup and Magnus and Spike from the Universal Olympic Games. And then they're through the process of trying to figure out who did it. Rodimus goes into the Matrix, finds out about the Quintessons. They track the Quintessons down. Quintessons blow up their planet. Spoilers. And then they find a magical MacGuffin that'll freeze all the Transformers in the place billions of years after they were all made. Okay, that happens. Then we get a great character moment from Blitzwing, fabulous character moment, and he's not in the series anymore except as an animation error. And that. And it ends with Blitzwing pretty much making the fighting stop for the day. The Quintessons swearing vengeance on all Transformers, and the end.
Okay.
Well, and
so
the
Daniel,
tell
me
the
exactly
funny thing
what the Quintessons are.
Well, the funny thing is that the Quintessons were something that was essentially birthed from the '86 movie. The '86 movie, which was being penned by Ron Freeman. During those late '84, early '85 years, what people tend to forget is that Flint Dille at the time. I mean, we associate now Flint Dille with '86 and beyond, with the movie and everything, and he's on every extra when it comes to the '86 movie. But he came onto the Transformer scene after doing G.I. Joe for a while, and when he was leaving Joe, he was handling a lot of the very science fiction-y aspects of Cobra La and stuff. So when he probably went into, and Flint Dille has said a lot of times his inspirations for a lot of characters and story arcs and everything when it comes to season 3, but he really liked the idea of an open world and explaining origins and filling plot holes after what he did with G.I. Joe. And I guess it was just, I don't know if it was Ron Freeman or Flint Dille that created those characters, but clearly one of those two. And I like to think it's more Flint because the original drafts of the 86 movie that we've seen don't involve Quintessons. So and those were Ron Freeman drafts. So I'd like to believe it was more a Flint Dille creation. And Flint Dille, I mean, you look at Quintessons, they're almost Cobra-La in themselves. Like anyone who's familiar with G.I. Joe, the movie and stuff, and Serpentor's organic kind of people in this very, what was really a grunt kind of army show for the longest time. You really see that organic spin that was brought, same way how it was brought to G.I. Joe was also brought with Transformers. Here's these tentacle monsters, and Cobra-La has a lot of that too, tentacles and organic stuff. And it seems like it was something that was really Flint Dille's kind of alley. And again, just Cobra-La was explaining the origin of Cobra Commander and everything and where he came from. We were introduced to these Quintessons, and what Don, kind of left out was when Rodimus went into the Matrix, he was put face to face with the creators of the Transformers, and we were introduced to the Quintessons as being the creators of the Transformers, because when we were first introduced to them in the 86 movie, they were just this weird alien, which is, in all honesty, I don't hate the Quintessons, but I always felt that that's kind of what their place belongs to be. I never enjoyed the idea of them being the creator of the Transformers. I've always enjoyed them more being the third faction that has to deal with Megatron or Galvatron or whoever, just as a goon, kind of like Destro to Cobra Commander, Mars to Cobra, just symbiotically working with each other. Because in later fiction of even Generation 1 Japan and Generation 1 America Season 3, you have stuff where Quintessons, like in their explanation, the Quintessons helped create Predaking. And this is in Japanese story pages and stuff. I don't think it's ever been officially said in the animation, but I know that in story pages, it's been said that the Predacons were created as a joint thing with the Decepticons together. There's also, when people go, the Quintessons created the Transformers, but then you look at stuff like Primacron and how he created Unicron, which was kind of a Transformer, and that's supposed to predate everything. You have some stuff that already starts to not mesh properly because episodes like Call of the Primitives kind of also had its own ambiguous way of explaining origins and stories. And it's like, here's Primacron that's supposedly beyond even the Quintessons in terms of how old he is. And he created Unicron that just happens to be a Transformer and tied to the Matrix. And then you got stuff like, Primacron's assistant, which supposedly is the Matrix. And then you have all these different fan theories of how that relates to things. And so I find that when you have all of that stuff and then you throw in the Marvel, origin story, I find that Quintessons, when you include them into that messy, fruit salad, they just don't belong anymore. They start to make a lot less sense, and they just kind of, in the same way how Energon or Superlink handled it, where they just kind of more belong as an extra villain or some kind of, old faction of something rather than being tied to the origin of the Transformers. And that's what the evolution of the characters have kind of become to this point, where they're more just old, wise beings of creation rather than tied to the origin of the Transformers. And there's been so many retcons up to this point now, where now they say, when the Quintessons arrived on a dead Cybertron, this is Kissplay explaining it, they found Vector Sigma and they found Primus and they imprisoned him and built Vector Sigma around him and then claimed that they created the Transformers. So there's all kinds of dual explanations to these characters too, on top of everything.
I think I would have rather seen the Quintessons, and I would have, looking back through the history, if the Quintessons had been like the Shadows from Babylon 5, an ancient race coming back into the power in order to achieve some universal goal, they're like the Shadows.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would enjoy. If they're just some kind of old wise race that just wants to get their piece of the pie back, while all this crazy, robot civil war's going down, with all these gods and stuff mixed into it on top of it, with Primus and Unicron and everything. Totally, I'm fine with that. Because I find that they belong more as that faction on the side that has the weapons that Galvatron once in a while has to turn to and go, hey, I need some help. You know, these Autobots are really a thorn in my side. I need your help. And in the same way, you look at the relationship that Galvatron in season 4 had with Zarek, where it was like we're just helping each other out of circumstance rather than we like each other, even though season 4 isn't really part of any canon now in this point. But it's kind of that same kind of relationship. And that's how I see
it
the
will always be canon. It
depends on perspective. But
Jack, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, pretty much I never got exposed to G1 all that well, being how I'm not as old as the other cast members. Yeah, but I'm trying to turn that around to where I actually am trying to stem away from like the recent lines like Generations or the 2015 RAD, and I'm trying to get back into the old stuff. And luckily, a friend of mine has a whole series, and I'm trying to get it off of them so I can go back, study, especially into the whole Quintesson part of it. So pretty much, as of right now, I haven't known a whole lot besides the movie, because I got that when I was like 7 or 8. So, I mean, I was like, okay, here's these guys who randomly show up, and it's like, nerd.
And that's literally it, because they first appeared with the 86 movie, and they were, hey, look at these guys, with no context,
no backstory
up to that point.
Pretty much.
Right.
You know?
Well, but so you still need to do more research before we could find you as a true believer or an anti-believer. So.
And that's what I hope to do within the next few months is research living hell out of the Quintessons.
Well, it's interesting because all the way up until when this topic came up for discussion, I never really thought about it. They were kind of an afterthought for me. You know, kind of. I remember them. I really don't care. But you stop and think about it. They were important. They really were. Even though they were introduced as a little side project in the movie, then later we get the backstory. And it kind of makes sense. And then there's other iterations of, like you said, Kiss, that they kind of change the story a little bit. But still, they were absolutely a part of the Transformers lore, and to get Transformers where they're at now. Now, there are other... And I'm not as up on the lines as you two are, and even you, Jack, all three of you. For like animated and this, that, and the other. So I'm not sure if they go along the same lines as G1 or if their timelines are a little different or whatever.
Well, the thing is that when it comes to Quintessons and other continuities and everything, with the exception of Shattered Glass and the Marvel UK comics touching up on them here and there, because they had, the Marvel UK comics also delved into their own continuity, which was kind of grown in that of the cartoon continuity. Quintessons are pretty absent, with the exception, again, of Superlink or Energon. They haven't really been something that's come up. If they are mentioned, they're mentioned in a throwaway line, like, the queen of the Quintessons. I'm like the son of a Quintesson. They might say something like that. But I almost feel like with the bringing up of Primus, and Primus is brought up so much more now when it comes to Transformer Origins. Transformers Prime really brought that to the forefront, where even Derek Wyatt, when he was doing Transformers Animated, a Primus Unicron origin was something he always intended for that race of Transformers. And then you look at the Unicron trilogy, it's the same thing. It's a Primus Unicron kind of origin. It seems that that's kind of the staple now, and the second you phase that out, you then ask yourself, well, then where do Quintessons fall into all of this? Unicron trilogy had their explanation. It was it's an alternate universe kind of thing in a black hole, and here's the Quintessons that got, their race was killed by Unicron, and now they're working with Unicron to revive the race, blah, blah, blah. Spoiler for Superlink. But in general, they're pretty much absent. They really have not had, like, the most modern iteration of them was the Shattered Glass version, and that's just Shattered Glass just kind of going, hey, everything's Bizarro world. So now they're kind of not assholes. You know, I don't know how to best describe it. They're more hippie. Like they have, I mean, Google Shattered Glass Quintessons and you'll see a very John Lennon, you know, kind of. I don't know how to describe it.
He even has the glasses.
Yeah, it's a very different kind of Quintesson because it's Shattered Glass.
Very groovy.
Very groovy. Yeah, it's a very 1960s Quintesson, but it's just they're and. Like you mentioned before, with the lack of a toy outside of an Alpha Quintesson from the Energon line, which by the way didn't even have a presence in Japan. It was just solely a Hasbro created toy. There's never been a Quintesson toy, and when I mean never been a Quintesson toy, I'm talking not a PVC, not a little figure here and there, not even from the Japanese side of things. It's always been a third-party item or nothing, and it really shows that. Hasbro and Takara probably have no interest of revisiting something that was probably very confusing to the origin of the Transformers today, especially the narrative that they're sticking to now. With Primus.
Let me ask this: that toy, and I'm trying to remember, it was it rolled on the ground and kind of spun around.
Yeah, Alpha Quintesson. I'm looking at it.
Alpha Quintesson. That was it.
I'm looking at it. Right.
Was that not the most goofed up toy to represent something like that? To me, I mean, I looked at it. Other than if I hadn't known what a Quintesson was, even knowing that it existed, it would have a hard time for me to connect the two.
Yeah, well, especially the way that I see it, it was one of the few Hasbro created toys that were clearly an afterthought. When Superlink went its 52 episode run in Japan. And all the toys released up to that point, way before we even saw the first episode of Energon dubbed and brought over here, there was no plans to do a Quintesson toy, or Alpha Q as he was called in Japan. So I guess it was just, I don't know, maybe they looked at the Energon line, Hasbro, from the import side of things and said, well, we're not getting that kicker toy, so we're going to make our own kicker toy. And we're not getting, they didn't get the Deluxe Prime. Actually, did they get the Deluxe Prime? No, I don't think they did. I know the Japanese did, but, we didn't get that Deluxe Prime toy. So I don't know, maybe they're trying to balance it out. And so that was a Hasbro engineered creation. That's why it kind of is kind of weird. It's a weird toy. It has a weird base. It has those, wired in plastic, posable tentacles and stuff with tools on the end of it. I'll give it credit. It's kind of accurate to how it looks on the show except without that missile launcher on top of its head there. It didn't really have that in the show. I mean, it has the gimmick where you push a button on its back and it has unfortunately only 3 faces, and then the 4th face is supposed to be the closed mouth, and there was supposed to be a hidden 5th face in the show, but the toy lacks that, so it's technically not even a Quintesson, the toy. It's only like I don't know what's 4 is a Quadesson. So even though that would represent, someone who can't walk, but either way, actually it doesn't have legs either. But point being is it's a weird toy. And I feel that Hasbro kind of has gone out of their way to not use that character or idea anymore. I mean, unless the movies decide to ever go that route, and it's not looking that way. It really isn't. I think that there's been a lot of opportunities to kind of introduce Quintessons, and they haven't gone. It was definitely not Transformers 5 at this point. Now we're going, Starscream and King Arthur's Court for the next movie. So, the way I see it. So
don't even get me started.
Yeah, but the point being is, the way that I see it is, it doesn't look like the movies are. And again, even the movies are kind of going that Fallen Primus, Unicron. They're going more in that direction too. So the narrative is just. It keeps moving away from our green tentacled friends, and more they're going to be forgotten as being the creators of the Transformers, and more of just being no different than Nightbird or any other kind of third faction extra villain that isn't a Decepticon,
Yeah, but you're also looking at like Nightbird's like a one-off. It was a one spin.
Yeah,
or I mean, the Quintessons had a lot more to offer.
They did. When they were created,
they're more deserving.
When they were created, there was definitely hope that this would be, well, here's our establishment of fiction. Simon Furman threw that all to the wall come issue 64 of Marvel, like that. If that issue would have never came out, that would have, we wouldn't be talking about Primus. Quintessons probably would have still been the official origin story and probably would have stuck around. I mean, we even look at Beast Wars, where Quintessons were not a thing. We had the Vok, we had something else. There was a whole other tentacly kind of looking.
I was wondering if you're going to bring that into it.
Like you have the Vok, and then you have, even with Beast Wars 2nd, where they were touching on with Gaia and the mysterious origins of that planet. Never touch on Quintessons, though.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you really think the Vok were who they say they were? Or who presented themselves as?
According to supplemental material, and again, this is, you take it with a grain of salt, but this is the supplemental material. The Vok is like the human race to the ultimate evolution, going back in time and to trying to fix the mistakes that we did of what made our planet extinct, and it's super complicated.
It sounds like it, but to me, when I first saw that, I kid you not, when I saw that, there was part of me that thought about the Quintessons.
Oh, totally, because they have it. They have that aesthetic, They have
that maybe they were connected somehow.
They have those standalone faces, which again, Quintessons are just kind of these floating heads in a lot of ways. They have the tentacles in the back. So they have that similar aesthetic. And I'm pretty sure when the visuals of the Vok were being created, which were more or less solidified with season 2, at that point, the writers were really looking back at what was existent of Transformer lore at the time, which really was G1. That's all that existed at the time.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure they looked back, and I'm pretty sure Bob Forward and who was the other writer? Bob Ford and I'm trying to remember the other name guy, but I'm pretty sure they were looking back and going, yeah, maybe we could pull from this if we make it to a 4th season. Maybe we'll make those connections. Who knows? There's been mention, their ability to just easily remold Transformers. Again, what we knew of Quintessons up to that point, how they were related to Transformer Origins. Who knows? Who knows where they could have went with that, with those characters? But it seems like today they're kind of pushed to the side, and I can't for the life of me think of the last time they've been mentioned outside of Shattered Glass. It's been a while. The movie line from start to finish went without anything of a peep. Transformers Prime, it's the same thing. It was so grounded in movie concepts and that Primus origin. I'm even looking at sublines, stuff like Creo didn't have Quintessons, stuff like, actually, I take that back. I think there was a Quintesson in the background of one of the Creo mangas, but I have to ask Naoto-san. But
I think the last thing I remember, other than what you're talking about with Shattered Glass, was Derek J. Wyatt in the animated source book had Quintessa as one of the planets in the system of Cybertrons.
That was 2009. In 2009, the Allspark Almanacs, which were technically not even written by Derek. They were done by Jim Sorensen and Bill Forrester, I want to say. They were more written by them, and even Derek has kind of gone on the record where not everything kind of has his blessing. So, he doesn't like the way they handled the Beast characters, because he kind of had his own idea of how Beasts would be introduced to Transformers in his continuity. So, they're there, and I mentioned them before that Quintessons do exist in the animated continuity, and they do kind of have that same similar side character role, but again, only mentioned in the likes of an Allspark Almanac written by
Swindle. And I think Swindle mentioned them just at one point as well.
Like I said, the only other time it would be like a throwaway line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would be like something where it's a throw, like they'll say them in a throw. It's the same way. You'd be like, son of a Stunticon. Wait, is there Stunticons?
Yeah,
no, throwaway line,
When he brought up Swindle, it was the, I'm looking at it just now when he was saying that it was the episode Decepticon Error, and Swindle called them nice folks.
No, there you go. So that's just it. It's something that at that point in that continuity, we just kind of have, like, the only way it was kind of fleshed out was through Jim and Bill, through the Allspark Almanac, which is like, still to this day, some people are kind of going, it's half canon. You know, it's like, because Derek just kind of like, oh, I don't like how this was done. They had to redraw some stuff for the combined book, I remember, because they didn't like the way Skybite looked. Because again, like the way beasts were handled, Derek wasn't a fan of. But in general, like they're weird characters. I mean, there's not much more that could be said. I'm like looking around the room trying to remind myself of what else is there, and there really isn't.
So basically, they've just become an Easter egg. If they show up at some point, they're just an Easter egg for the old fans.
It's gotten to a point. It's gotten to a point now that Nightbeat has more of a presence now year to year than Quintessons do. It's gotten to a point where Bludgeon has more of a presence than Quintessons do, where characters that were once niche are becoming more mainstream than Quintessons. You know, there's more Unicron toys than Quintesson toys. There's more. You know, there's soon going to be more RC toys than there ever was a Quintesson toy. You know. Like it's gotten, or even Chromia, it's gotten to that point where they're really getting pushed to the back of the room when it comes to Transformers lore. Even when they, you know, if you would have looked during like 1995 Beast Wars, Quintessons were a big deal, and Nightbeat had one toy and died in a G2 comic book. Today, Nightbeat has like 50 toys. He appears in a whole bunch of books, and Quintessons are never mentioned again.
Right. So right. You know, Quintessons is basically your one-hit wonders.
Well, it was an idea that existed, and then they kind of just, you know, like after the Marvel series ended, that kind of put an end to a lot of things. It's like, I mean, in terms of even that continuity of the cartoon continuity, the last thing we heard of them was those Bakan Universe 2.0 comics. 1.0 comics, like the Universe comics and the Wrecker books that were done by 3H back then. That was the last we heard of them in that continuity, unless you count Kissplay, which kind of dips into that but goes backwards. But in general, you don't really have like Quintessons. You don't. It's just it's a very absent thing from Transformers now, and Quintessa and all of that stuff.
Well, the best thing is they brought back Prime and made all the little children happy again.
Yeah. Yes, they did. For the however many times he's been brought back. So, I mean, they did it at least once. So, there you go. Well, at least. So, what do you guys think? Anything else on the Quintessons?
I just remember now that they were in one of the G.I. Joe versus Transformer comics, but again, that's stretching it. I think that was with the Art of War books, which were like the when Devil's Due still had the G.I. Joe license. So, yeah. I mean,
were they even in the what was that called? Where they did the volumes of all the Transformers in the comic book. Remember, and they had it listed all different ones. Were they even in that one?
The more than
which one are you referring to?
It was Marvel Comics, and it was back in the 80s. And they did a Joe.
Oh, you're talking about the Universe. You're talking about the Universe books.
Yes,
that's a good question.
Were they even in there?
Yeah,
I think they had entry.
They were in the collected paperback bound edition, not in the 4-issue miniseries, because
they were not in the original series.
Well, they were not in the original 4-issue miniseries, right? But then when they did that, appeared at that point, the Quintessons was still in the movie section at the end of the book.
Yeah, and now like I'm just like, because I'm trying to think heavily, like even when it comes to the IDW comics, Spotlight Wheelie again threw the name away for like a few moments because Wheelie kind of like, oh, his parents got killed by the Quintessons. Like little things like that were thrown around, but they're never explicitly shown.
Well, I just had Jay Boyd asked, were they ever mentioned in Victory or Master Force or any of the other Japanese series?
All of the, like, okay, see, Quintessons, and this is where, like, when you get to Zone, Transformer Zone, for the longest time before we knew any better, we all thought Volinger was a Quintesson just because of his turning head design. But then we find out he's actually the souls of dead, Decepticons and, all that stuff. So, I mean, up to, like, they disappear more or less the time Headmasters rolls around, the Japanese Headmaster series. And then by Master Force, Victory Zone, going into Battle Stars, Operation Combination, G2 story pages, they're completely gone, absent from all of that, completely.
Oh, there you go. So that's pretty much a basic rundown of their appearances in the fandom. Now, of course, and Duran and I were kind of texting back and forth. There's been some third-party companies that have made Quintessons in different formats, this, that, and the other.
Yes.
But as far as official, we've done the best we could to
just the one,
just to state what they were, and however poor that may be. But I hope people understand, other than the fact that they have a Megatron to the back of their head, I hope people understand what the importance was of the Quintessons and in the movie and in canon. And this actually came from one of our listeners came up with this idea, and here you go. You throw us out some ideas, and we'll bite on a few of them if it's a good topic. I think this was one that was long overdue. Most people don't talk about it. We're going to talk about it. So keep bringing them in. Keep giving us ideas, because trust me, between all of us, we start losing them. So with that in mind, I think we're going to probably wrap this one up.
Sounds good.
Unless you guys got anything to add.
Just that Impossible Toys did those Quintesson third-party ones, and they go for money now. That's about it. Which don't exist anymore, that company.
No, that's true. That's true. So, all right. Well, if this works out well, Duran's going to end the broadcast here in just a few minutes. So I'm just going to say for all of us, we thank you for joining us with another episode of TFYLP. And hopefully he'll sign us off right now, so now we're not just sitting here staring at each other waiting for him to end it.
I got a feeling that's what's going to happen.
Maybe.
Bye. Maybe.
We can just keep saying bye.
Bye-bye.
So do waving.
The